Sabres After Dark starts off with a W. Not a lot of scoring, but a W nonetheless. We'll talk about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's performance, the power play staying hot, a lot to get to coming up on today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, and thanks for making today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast your first listen every day. Be sure to check us out on our Locked On Sabres text club. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. Sneaky Joe DiBiase on today's show. We're coming to you after a win, a late game, 10:30 puck drop in LA. Credit to you if you stayed up for that entire game, or if you even stayed up to puck drop, because 10:30 is a late one. You would have got paid off with the result. You might not have got paid off with action in the game, but nonetheless, everybody's happy with the win. 1-0, the Sabres over the LA Kings. You know, not too far off what I thought might happen. At time of recording yesterday, we thought Alex Tuch wasn't going to play. He did end up playing, so that changed my perception a little bit of the game, but in general, my idea of that game was, with the lineup the Sabres were putting out, still no Tage Thompson, lock it down, try to win a 2-1 hockey game, and they went even more extreme than that. Winning 1-0. Although I got some numbers that point to the Sabres may have not been trying to win that way. They got a great performance from their goaltender. No doubt, the best performance a Sabres goaltender has had all season. And Luukkonen's best of the year for sure. So a lot to get to. We'll break down the goal. I've got some really good stats and numbers on the Sabres power play and how well that's been going as of late. They score again last night. One of the stats that I'll bring you is that they have scored in 7 straight games. The Sabres power play has scored in 7 straight games. So a lot to get to on a bunch of things coming up on today's show of the Locked On Sabres podcast. I also want to talk a little bit about the standings later on as well. As previously mentioned, if you would like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, if you want updates on practice, on game lineups, lines, you want to talk throughout the games themselves, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place where you can sign up for that. So let's get to some of what happened in this game, but some of my overall takeaways are, watching the game back this morning in full, that the Sabres were playing the possession game early on in the first period. I think they kind of got stuck in their own end in the second period. They only had 3 shots on goal in the second, so they did not have a very good period there. But they locked it down. They got a power play goal, and they played good defensive hockey in the third until the very end, which wasn't really their fault. Once you got to the end of the game, you had a bunch of players that had been out there for a really long time, and the Kings piled up some chances late when Tuch had been out there for 4 minutes and Benson had been out there for 3 minutes, and the Sabres could not get the puck out of their end. They could not get off the ice. So in general, not a bad hockey game. Would I say that they got outplayed? I wouldn't say that in a big way. I think they got outplayed a little bit by the Kings. I think the Kings, by the end of the day, they end up with more shots. They end up with more shot attempts in this game. They end up with more expected goals, more scoring chances. Really, any stat you look at would say, okay, yeah, the Kings probably deserve to win this game, but it wasn't like it was so overwhelming in one direction, in my opinion, watching it back. I was actually a little surprised that the expected goals ended up being as lopsided as it was. 3.9 for LA, 2.3 for the Sabres. Little of that could have been the difference in the power play opportunities. The Kings having 5 in this game, the Sabres only having 3. Little reminiscent maybe even of the earlier game this year between the Sabres and the Kings, where the Kings scored a couple of early goals in the third period, and the Sabres and the fans probably felt like this is the home opener. They played well. Like, okay, I think we kind of deserved to win that hockey game, but they didn't. And this game, maybe the Kings felt like, we probably deserved to win that hockey game. And they did not end up winning the hockey game. So, again, numbers 23-19 were the shots in favor of LA. 67-52 the Kings had on shot attempts. Scoring chances in this game, 32-21. And as previously mentioned, expected goals for 3.9 to 2.3. The star of the show, we're not going to do our 3 stars of my sneaky stars of the game because there's one. There's one guy. That's it to talk about here. And that is absolutely, undoubtedly, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is on fire right now. And last night was kind of the culmination of all of that. He has been playing much better, as we've talked about on WGR with Paul Hamilton. Paul's theory on Luukkonen going back to last year is I think he plays better when he's in the net more, when he can get in a rhythm, when he just kind of plays night to night to night and doesn't have long breaks in between. So that will get us to a future discussion about if you ever want him to split the net with somebody, because I think you probably want that someday, but maybe not if he's a goalie that needs to play all the time. But if he does play all the time, he plays really well, so why do I even care at that point? This is, if you take out, and I know that's an if, but if I'm willing to give Luukkonen a little bit of a pass for the Montreal game last Monday, where Lindy said it, that he was injured going into the game. He probably shouldn't have put him in there. He played 2 periods. He got pulled. If you take out that game where he was looking like he was playing injured, Luukkonen has won 4 games in a row. And in those 4 games, he has allowed 4 goals. That is all. 37 saves on 38 shots against Ottawa, 25 saves on 26 shots against the Rangers, 24 saves on 26 shots against the Flames, 23 saves on 23 saves against the Kings. 4 goals allowed, 4 wins, 1 shutout. The last 4 games that Luukkonen played where he was healthy, he's been dominant. He's been fantastic. And last night, there were big saves, sprawling saves, where he was doing a split, challenging the shooter, somewhere he was back in his own net, all different types of saves. Late in the game, with some big ones. He got a little lucky late in the game, too, because you had a King break his stick on the side of the net. You had Adrian Kempe miss the net on a glorious opportunity that he rarely misses. So it wasn't without his breaks. Beck Malenstein threw himself in front of a shot at one point, left with an injury. He came back, but I'm not taking any credit away from Luukkonen. Now, nor would anybody even think to. He was unbelievable in this game. He saved 3.66 goals above expected in this game. 3.66. That is one of the better performances in the NHL all season. It is, by that stat, it is the best game Luukkonen's had all year. He has not had another game where he has saved that much above expected. In fact, not even close. And by goal saved above expected, it's the 3rd best game of Luukkonen's career. It's the 3rd best game of Luukkonen's career. He was phenomenal. 6th shutout of his career, 1st of the season. He was NHL 3rd star of the week 2 weeks ago. And I mean, if he has a couple of good games here on Friday and Saturday, that's if he plays both. I think he probably more likely will only play one. But this is where I'm at with Luukkonen following last night's game. He just looks so sharp. He wasn't allowing... The big problem I had with Levi the other night was Levi was putting big rebounds right out in front. Very easy to get a second opportunity on. Luukkonen was not doing that. Luukkonen was not giving the Kings, handing them extra opportunities. So his control was very good in this game. So Luukkonen playing a lot, I think that's what we're headed for. Reimer as the backup, James Reimer right now. Maybe he gets the Friday or the Saturday game. But I think Luukkonen is going to see more starts or as many starts as anybody in the National Hockey League over the next 5 months. I think you're going to see him play around 60 games, over 60 games this year. I think he's going to have the net to himself as long as he plays like this. I mean, I don't think they're worried about his rest. I don't think they're worried about his workload. I think he proved last year He plays well when he's playing all the time. So why fight it? Why force, I think someday you want to have a conversation about Devin Levi in this regard, but Levi hasn't earned that conversation this year of, well, what do you want to do if it's a 1A, 1B situation? You need Luukkonen to kind of show better when he's playing every third night instead of every other night. Levi hasn't earned that. So with that being said, until he does, this is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen's net. And nobody else should ever go in it unless it's a back-to-back or he's injured. Or he plays, he has a stretch where he plays horrifically. But the way he's looking right now, I'm not seeing that in the near future, personally. So Sabres get the win. 1-0. Jason Zucker scoring the Sabres' only goal, assisted by Rasmus Dahlin and Alex Tuch. Zucker's 4th goal of the year, 13th point of the year. It's been a very good signing so far. And Zucker, he'll be a part of our power play breakdown coming back because Zucker is producing on the power play. And the Sabres power play has been a complete tale of two seasons. I'm going to break down the goal from last night and then get to some numbers on the Sabres power play. It's looked better. Just how much better has it been? We'll have that for you when we return here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. We did not hit on our parlay last night because, hey, as I said, sometimes you go with the head instead of the heart. Well, this time the heart would have been right over the head. Sometimes that happens. Kings -1.5, not the bet for last night. The Sabres get the win. They were an underdog in this game. We'll see. I think they're going to be favored on probably Friday and Saturday. You want to check out all the odds on the Sabres. You want to check out the goal scoring props on Peterka or on Dahlin or Jason Zucker, whoever you want. Check it all out at FanDuel Sportsbook for the upcoming games ahead. FanDuel also, of course, football. And get ready to tackle the NFL action all season long with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app, they give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place, so that when you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play right up to the minute, so you're not late on anything you want to do, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. 1-0 Sabres over the Kings, 9-9-1 on the season, heading into Anaheim, who we'll talk about more tomorrow. But Anaheim is one of the worst teams in the league on paper, but they're up to 500 now. They have won 3 games in a row, and they have a really good goaltender in Lucas Dostal, who's played great to start the year. So a lot to talk about with them, because I still want to believe that's a bad hockey team, but their record has improved dramatically in the last couple of days as they've gone on a little bit of a win streak here. So we'll talk more about the Ducks, though, tomorrow, but that's what's next up on Friday night. The only goal the Sabres scored on Wednesday night in LA was on the power play. No goals scored at 5-on-5 for an entire hockey game. Sometimes you get a game like that. 8 penalties called in total, 5 on the Sabres, 3 on the Kings. By the way, minor point, no pun intended here. Maybe this is a discussion or a topic for more expansion in a future show. But Rasmus Dahlin takes another penalty last night. Dahlin for delay a game in the second period. Rasmus Dahlin is now second in the NHL in the last 3 seasons in minor penalties. The whole league. He has taken the second most minor penalties in hockey, 77. The only player with more is Brad Marchand. And I want to bet a lot of Brad Marchands are after the whistle plays. They don't separate those, so that's kind of a guess here. But I might want to guess that in penalties in game, in play, Dahlin might lead the league. But in the stats, he's 3 minor penalties behind Marchand for the second most in the last 3 seasons in the NHL. Again, more of a minor point. We know that's become a topic of conversation, though, lately, is him and penalties. The power play, though, on the other side, the Sabres power play scores again last night. That is 7 games in a row that they have scored on the power play. Jason Zucker, again. And this is a good goal it's a good role that he is serving for them right now. And it's not one that I ever would have thought he was in line for. If you told me Zucker was going to contribute on the power play this year, my guess would have been, okay, well, he's a good finisher, so he's going to be on the wing on probably the second unit. But instead, he's doing all his business from the net front. He's doing it all from right in front of the net. And they have not had a consistent net front power play presence since probably Sam Reinhart. And before that, Thomas Vanek, who, of course, were both amazing at it. Zucker is doing great on that role so far this year. And he is now up to 3 goals and 3 assists on the power play this year. That's almost half his points. He has 13 points on the year. 6 of them are with the man advantage. So this goal last night, just kind of a quick breakdown. There was only 1 goal to look through, and really it wasn't anything super complicated. It was kind of a textbook goal before we get some numbers. It's a nice zone entry, the play before the faceoff. Talk to Peterka to Zucker in the zone. It's a very quick 1-2-3 pass play. And without Tage Thompson, who I think is probably their best zone entry man when he's coming through the neutral zone with speed, him not being out there, you got to rely on your passing and your teamwork a little bit more, I think, to get into the zone. And that's what happens here. Tuck comes in right to Peterka, and then Peterka kind of gains the blue line and then makes a quick pass to Zucker. Zucker throws it back, and bam, you're set up. Now, the play goes around for a second, and then face-off. So face-off to the left of David Rittich, the Kings goaltender, and Dylan Cousins win the draw. And this is kind of a textbook play. There's nothing real flashy here. There's no star play by anybody, but that's okay. You could score a goal if you just get. This is a point about the NHL, maybe in general, and hockey as a sport. It's almost like golf. This is a rule I have in golf. It's a mindset I always try to have in golf. If I hit one great shot and a bad shot, I'm probably going to par the hole. If I just do my job and hit 4 okay shots, 4 do your job shots, you're going to par the hole. This was a par. This was a par goal, I would say. Not a birdie. This is not a birdie goal. This is not an eagle goal. This is a par goal. You got 3 guys who just did their job. That's it. Dylan Cousins won the faceoff. Nothing flashy about it. Nothing spectacular about it. Just, hey, your job right here is to win the faceoff. Dylan Cousins does it. Second job, Rasmus Dahlin at the point. Nothing crazy to do. Just, hey, your job right now with an open shooting lane is get the puck through to the net. That's it. Don't have to blast it. Don't have to get a 100-mile-an-hour slap shot through. Just get the puck to the net. All right. Dahlin does his job. 3, Jason Zucker is standing right in front, and here comes a not a hard wrist shot, but here comes a soft wrist shot-ish through the zone, and get a stick on it. 3, Zucker does that. He gets just a little piece of it. Just a little piece, textbook goal. Guy won a face-off, guy got a puck to the net, guy got a stick on it in the back of the net. Textbook par hockey goal, if that analogy works for you. So that's what happened on the goal. Sabres never looked back. They held on to the lead all the way through after that. Here are some numbers on the power play. The power play, which, remember, I'm sure you will if you watch these games, the Sabres power play began the season with it took them longer than any other team in the league to get their first power play goal. The Sabres began the season 0 for 22. And that was one of their worst starts to a year ever when it comes to the power play. 0 for 22 to start the season for the Buffalo Sabres. They scored their first power play goal on their first power play on October 26th. Since then, since they broke that power play drought, since they scored their first goal, so this is since October 26th, the Buffalo Sabres power play is 11 for 37. That is 29.7%. That is third best in the NHL since October 26th. So let me say that again. Since the Sabres scored their first power play goal, they are 11 for 37, 29.7%, third best power play in the NHL. They've gone from the worst in the league to the third best in the league. Bam, just like that. And maybe Zucker getting promoted to that top unit is a big reason why. He, of course, he is tied. Some other stats on the power play. Zucker and Dahlin are tied atop the leaderboard with 3 power play goals. Kind of amazing they've done this with Tage Thompson only scoring 1 power play goal. 1 power play goal for Thompson, and they found a way for 10 others to find the back of the net. Peterka's found the back of the net. Benson has found the back of the net. Cousins has. They have scored, as I mentioned a couple times before, 7 straight games with a power play goal. It's also 10 of their last 11. 10 of their last 11 games, they've scored a power play goal. And if you look at the season in totality, how amazing is it that after starting 0 for 22, which of course would have been 32nd in the NHL, they've now climbed all their way up to 17th. They are the 17th best power play for the season. So they've gone from one of the worst we've ever seen to, well, middle of the pack for the year. And all of that, of course, is within the last month. So the power play has looked great. Are there any changes when it comes to how they play on the power play that's different? I'm not noticing massive differences. What I am noticing is more shots from the likes of Rasmus Dahlin at the point. I think maybe this was, ingrained into him. Dahlin is more of a playmaker on the power play by trade. I think he is somebody that more wants to get Tage and Peterka their one-timers. More and more, especially with Tage out, but I think even regardless, you're seeing Dahlin, when he's got a shooting lane, he's taking it. He's not trying to make the perfect pass. He's not trying to he's not trying to force everything to Tage Thompson. When Dahlin's got a lane, he's taking it. And there have been a couple of slap shot goals that he's had where he just blasts off from the point and it's found its way through. And as we mentioned previously, this goal against LA was just, I'm not wasting any time. The lane is there. I'm just feathering this puck through to the net with a wrist shot and then hope that Zucker does something in front, which in this case he did. So that's been a change that I've noticed. Otherwise, I feel like their zone entries are pretty much the same as when they started the year. So maybe they're just getting better results there. Peterka and Tuck or Thompson flying through the neutral zone with speed. Nothing else is really all that different. I think the only big change, in my opinion, has been Zucker going to the top unit and then Dahlin getting more pucks through to the net. When we come back, we'll take a look at the standings because the standings are looking pretty good right now. We got to have a conversation about the conference, and there's an opportunity the Sabres have here that all the other teams are asking them to take hold of, and they're kind of doing it, but not quite yet. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by Gametime. Soon enough, next week, the Sabres will be back home, and they're in a playoff spot, so games are exciting, and if you want to go check it out at the arena, or you want to check out anything in terms of comedy shows that are coming up, concerts as well, we got a lot happening in town this winter. You can check out all the tickets for all of the above on the Gametime app. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. That makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. So Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff. So when you're scrolling through, it's only going to show you the incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Gametime has all-in pricing. You hit this feature, it's right there. You can get the all-in pricing. There's no surprise fees at checkout. It's going to show your total right up front, not trying to sneak through and get you to pay more at the end. Your seat views, when you're scrolling through the app, you see exactly what you're going to be looking at. They have a lowest price guarantee. If you find a ticket for lower in the same section, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Check it all out at Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is also brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play. It means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks 100 times your money on as little as 4 correct picks. They have injury insurance, so your lineup stays in play even if one of your players gets injured in the first half and does not return. PrizePicks will keep your lineup live. Very fast, super easy to get your money out. They offer Venmo, which I think is easily the quickest way to do this. You can check out different star players. Connor McDavid, will he get more than half a goal next week? Austin Matthews, more than McDavid. You could throw all these types of things in on your lineup, game to game, week to week. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app, code LOCKEDONNHL, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Let's take our old sail across the Atlantic Division. More than that, the Eastern Conference, as the Sabres get the win, 1-0 over LA last night, and now the standings are looking really, really interesting, despite the fact that the Sabres are 1 point per game. I mean, 19 points in 19 games, an 82-point pace. You would think, right? You would think on a given year, 82 points is not going to be anywhere near a playoff spot. But, to start the year, nobody wants to do any better than that. So let's look at the standings, how they look right now at the moment, and where the Sabres kind of fall into the picture. At the moment, the Sabres are in a playoff spot. You wake up this morning, I guess afternoon now, you pull up the standings, and you will see the Buffalo Sabres in a playoff spot, at least until tonight when you get some more games. Right now, second wildcard position, 9-9-1, 19 points in 19 games, a +1 goal differential. The Sabres are in that spot. 7 regulation wins out of their 9, as opposed to, for instance, look at the Islanders, man. If I told you there was going to be a team in the league that started the year 7-7-5, 7 wins, 7 losses, 5 overtime losses, and was tied for a playoff spot. Who would you guess? If you don't guess the Islanders, you don't watch enough hockey, because that is New York Islanders hockey, baby. So let's just get this game to overtime. Last year, what was it? Like 16 losses in overtime? Something crazy. That's all they do. They just try to get it to OT, get a loser point, and they'll luck their way into the playoffs and get stopped. The Sabres, 9-9-1. Anyways, 19 points in 19 games. They are also only 2 points back of Tampa. Tampa is in the 3rd position in the Atlantic. They have played 2 fewer games than the Sabres, so points percentage they are higher. But 21 points in 17 games for Tampa, only 2 points better than the Sabres for that 3rd spot in the Atlantic at this moment in time. And Tampa's not looked great to me. Tampa has not looked great. They've looked okay. They've looked pretty good, better than Boston, but they've not looked so dominant, in my opinion. They look very gettable at this point in time. But Tampa is one of those teams. They did this last year. They're an older team. They're a veteran team. They seem to be the team for they know when to flip the switch. They know when to flip the switch, and they'll be in the playoffs at the end of the day. But anyways, if you take a look at the standings, here's what my takeaway is, because sure, the Sabres have the spot right now. If you notice, look down at the bottom there at Montreal. Montreal is in dead last, tied with Detroit, actually, and Columbus in the Eastern Conference at 16 points. There is only a 3-point difference between dead last in the Eastern Conference and the second wildcard position. All these teams are grouped together. At 19 points, Sabres, Islanders, Bruins. At 18 points, Flyers and Penguins. Ottawa at 17 points, and then Columbus, Detroit, and Montreal at 16 points. All of these teams are just smashed together. And to me, what I take away is it's not going to be 82 points to get to the playoffs. Somebody is going to get it together. This is an opportunity right now for all of these teams. The Sabres, the Islanders, the Bruins, the Flyers, the Penguins, the Senators, the Red Wings, all these teams. This start to the year is, every team's got the same story. All of them. We've been pretty streaky, inconsistent out of the gates. 500 hockey or worse. But, hey, the conference isn't making us pay for it yet. There's still an opportunity here for us to grab it and go. And the Sabres are in the same boat in that department as everybody else. They are playing inconsistent hockey right now. Before it was streaky. It was lose 3, win 3, lose 3. And as of the last week and a half, it's been more win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. That being said, There's no reason it can't be them. There's no reason it has to be Boston. Boston just replacing their head coach. Older team. Marchand doesn't look the same. The goaltending doesn't look as good as it had been. Boston doesn't look the same. Minus 21 goal differential, by the way, for the Bruins. The second worst mark in the NHL. They are getting smoked. They're not just losing games. They are getting smoked. Boston is. So far, they look like they could be out of a spot. The Islanders, you know my feelings on them. I've never believed that that's a really good hockey team. The Flyers, I think are punching above their weight. The Penguins look old. They just made a trade the other day. It looks like a seller's move. Ottawa, I still expect to get it together a little bit more. And Detroit is, kind of fluttering around, average veteran team. So I'm not saying the Sabres have to be better than any of those teams. But could they be? Absolutely. Absolutely, they could be. I can make the argument if Luukkonen's going to play as well as he is right now, and Tage Thompson gets back healthy, and he's been playing like one of the best centers in hockey, that might be all they need to grab a playoff spot. And this could be a year where, 82 is not going to get it done, but what if nobody goes nuts? What if it's only a small uptick for one or two of these teams, and 89 gets in, 88 gets in? Minnesota. We talked about this morning on WGR. The Minnesota Wild in 2015 made the playoffs with 87 points. Believe that's the lowest a team that's ever made the playoffs has had. That doesn't count like COVID years. So it could be a low number. And with that being said, the Sabres are being gifted an opportunity here early on by the teams around them. Everybody right now is just saying, hey, Buffalo, go ahead. Go ahead. If you want it to be your year, go, take it. Here you go. On a platter. Take it. And the Sabres have maybe so far this year been nibbling at it. Like, I don't know, make sure it's not poisonous or something. And at some point, they're going to have to take the whole thing. They're going to have to take it over, and they're going to have to run with it. There's an opportunity here for the Sabres in the next two games to win a couple and start to build a lead. That you want to be playing from ahead in a playoff race. The Sabres, even when they came close 2 years ago, they were chasing all year long. Play with the lead. And they have two games here against two bad teams. I'm still going to call Anaheim a bad team, even though they're 500. San Jose and Anaheim. If they get 4 points here, then you could be looking at a 3-point lead going into next week. And then you start to incrementally increase that one after the other. A point a week, if you will. You take the spot, you don't give it back, and every week you add 1 point to the lead. That would be a cool goal in this playoff race going forward, and they have an opportunity to do that this weekend. All right, that's a quick look at the standings. That's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. If you would like to sign up for our Locked On Sabres text club, maybe we start scoreboard watching a little bit. That might be something that's worthwhile going forward. We'll maybe start doing that a little bit here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. So, join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres if you want to sign up for our text club. Be sure to check out our sister shows, whether that's Locked On Bills with Joe Marino or Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Steele and Flip got you covered with daily fantasy hockey tips over there. That'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Sneaky Joe DiBiase, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.